One of the hidden gems of every summer season outside of dollar margaritas at Applebee's is just Las Vegas doing the dirty work for us, all right? Today we're going to look at lines that Vegas has set right now for the upcoming 2024 NFL season, all right? So they do all the numbers and the crunching and the algorithms to spit out stats, higher lowers for specific player lines, right? Like this receiver is set at 925 receiving yards for the season. So today we're going to break down 10 interesting stats nuggets or parallels between players that I think are going to really help us zone in on what's reality, what is practical, and what is just hype right now as it relates to fantasy football. There's a reason that Vegas stays in business because they're so damn good at this. And after this video, y'all are going to be equally good at fantasy football. All right. So 10 interesting nuggets, takeaways, whatever from Vegas as it relates to the upcoming season. Now, the first grouping of lines I want to take a look at are the rookie quarterbacks. I'm going to throw them all up on the screen. You could see Drake May's passing line is set at 2,400 yards for the season. J.J. McCarthy's at 29. Jayden Daniels is at 3,150. Bo Nix is at 2,850. Caleb Williams is up there at 3,600. Okay? So one thing to note with these lines, or what I think is helpful with these lines, is not necessarily, this is how successful these quarterbacks are going to be as a rookie, but more so it is Vegas's estimate of how early these rookies are going to get on to the field, right? Like, I don't think anyone is out here saying that J.J. McCarthy or Bo Nix is 500 passing yards better than Drake May. What I do think this is pointing towards is the fact that they expect Drake May to be the last rookie quarterback to get onto the field, all right? So if you're drafting in a super flex league, this might push you to draft a guy like Jacoby Brissett in the last round, because maybe he does start half the season. Maybe he does start, anywhere from 6 to 10 games, and that's not nothing in a super flex league if you need a starter. And I'm not here to hype up Jacoby Brissett. I'm just trying to give you the nuggets that I glean from these hires or lowers. Also, make sure you stay till the end of the video because I'm going to feed y'all some of my favorite higher or lowers that I have been actually putting my money down on Underdog, all right? So if you want to tell me, if you want to follow me, those will be at the end of the video. So with Caleb's lofty line, with Jayden Daniels' line above 3,000, I think we can pretty safely expect both of those guys to get onto the field right away. I think Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy, they're kind of in the, that dead zone there where they are expected to play the majority of the season. So with J.J. McCarthy up at 2,900, I think this tells me that they don't expect him to play maybe the full year, but they expect him to play a lot of the season, okay? And that would pull me away from a guy like Sam Darnold, where I might have been targeting him in best ball drafts as my QB3. I might have been targeting him as my QB3 in Superflex. And when you are targeting these rookie quarterbacks, especially in Superflex, you are hoping that, they get onto the field by week 4, 6, 8, and then you have them towards the fantasy playoffs if they end up being playmakers. A guy like J.J. McCarthy, if he gets onto the field by week 6 or week 8, he will hopefully have a full strength offense by that point, right? Because TJ Hawkinson is probably going to miss the beginning of the season. We have Jordan Addison with the looming suspension, but by week 8-10, we're hoping that they're at full strength. JJ McCarthy's on the field, like they are humming and moving and all that kind of stuff. So maybe you have them for the fantasy playoffs. So I thought the rookie quarterback lines were pretty interesting. One more line we're just going to look at right now and glaze a little bit is Patrick Mahomes. His higher or lower for passing touchdowns is 34.5. His higher or lower for passing yards is 4,360. Now, these numbers might not blow you away, but here's the deal. This is the single highest passing touchdown line among any quarterback. This is the single highest passing yardage line among any quarterback. So as I've been yelling at you guys for the last few videos, we, as well as Vegas, are expecting a major bounce back for the King. It's easy to be upset with what he did last year, but the 3 seasons prior, he threw for 5,250 yards, 4,839 yards, and 4,740 yards, okay? So his line right now, 4,360, is the highest passing yardage line up right now. And you could take all of these lines on Underdog Fantasy, okay? Y'all know we work with Underdog. This is where we take any lines that we will have. All the lines I'll show you at the end of the video. Underdog Fantasy. If you sign up for Underdog Fantasy and you want to put some money down on these hires or lowers, make sure that you use promo code BDGE if it's your first time depositing, because they're going to double whatever you put down. So if you want to throw 20 on one of these lines, you do have to take 2 lines together. But if you want to throw down 20, you use code BDGE, you will now have double that to put down on whatever square you were hoping for. And if you use code BDGE, they're also going to give you a free square for week 1. So you'll get on there. You could take Mahomes 34.5 passing touchdowns, but you'll also get a 0.5 passing yard line for Lamar Jackson in week 1. So you've already hit one of the two. Now, the next group of players I kind of want to take a look at, because the second, third, fourth rounds of wide receivers in drafts this year have been a little bit tricky to decipher. This is where I like to use Vegas as sort of a tiebreaker here, right? So when I'm looking at guys like Brandon Ayuk, Cooper Kupp, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper specifically, those guys are all projected. They have the same season-long lines pretty much to the T when it comes to receiving yards, right? So Brandon Ayuk is set at 975. Cooper Kupp and DJ Moore are set at 950. Amari Cooper is 975. However, right now per ADP, and of course things can change with Brandon Ayuk moving somewhere, elsewhere, whatever. You might see this video after he got traded, so this will kind of become irrelevant, but the point will remain. This is a systematic video I'm making for you, all right? We're trying to fix the dam. Brandon Ayuk's underdog ADP right now, where he's getting drafted, is wide receiver 16. Cooper Kupp's is wide receiver 21. DJ Moore is wide receiver 22. Amari Cooper is wide receiver 28. So what we're saying here is that Brandon Ayuk's projection for the year is set at 975. Amari Cooper's is set at 975. However, Ayuk is the wide receiver 16, and Cooper is a wide receiver 28. Now, of course, this does not factor in overall fantasy points, because touchdown upside, you probably get a little bit more in the San Francisco offense. This does not factor in what type of scoring you are playing in, right? If it's full PPR versus half PPR, though. Cooper had a lot more volume than Ayuk did, so I wouldn't even put that in his favor. But these are little tiebreakers you could use to really start to dial in where the value tiers are and kind of keep you in check and keep you in line. So when you have that idea of should these guys really be going that far off, go check the Vegas lines. Go on Underdog and see where the receiving yards lines are, and you're probably not as crazy as you think. So as you're drafting, use these as a tiebreaker. The next group of wide receivers that I want to point out that have similar lines as well, set at 900 yards, is Malik Nabers, Terry McLaurin, and Chris Godwin. Okay, so Malik Nabers right now is getting drafted at the wide receiver 20. Terry McLaurin is getting drafted at the wide receiver 31. Chris Godwin is getting drafted at the wide receiver 36. But they are all projected to have 900 receiving yards and either 4.5 or 5.5 touchdowns, okay? So there is a massive gap there. Obviously, Malik Nabers is getting insane rookie hype right now. I don't see any of these guys separating themselves very much in terms of targets. I think they'll all finish between 115 and 135 targets. I think they'll all catch between 70 and 80, 85 balls, and I think they'll all score around 4 or 5 touchdowns. So the gap in 16 spots between Nabers and Chris Godwin, in my opinion, is ridiculous. Okay, so again, this is just another good way to utilize research and resources out there that are free for y'all. Another way to do this, or another way to utilize this too, rather than just looking at raw receivers, is to start looking at receiver rooms. So I was taking a look at crowded receiver rooms, see if there was any sort of separation, see if we can get any sort of glimpse into who Vegas projects to be the clear number one. And the first one I noticed was Houston's room, right? We have Tank Dell, we have Stephon Diggs, and we have Nico Collins. Now, there is a pretty clear divide tier separation as it relates to the Houston Texans receiver room, okay? So they've got Nico Collins projected for 1,050 yards. And again, these are Vegas lines, so they factor in risk, they factor in maybe an injured game or two, they factor in a lot of things. So they're not saying we project him to go off for 1,050. He's very likely to go for 1,300 or 1,400, but this is how Vegas operates. They're giving you a general direction, they're giving you bumpers on how they expect the rooms to play out. Nico is at 1,050, 5.5 touchdowns. Diggs is at 975, 6.5 touchdowns. Tank Dell all the way down at 825, 4.5 touchdowns. Now, if you have been drafting on Underdog, you have noticed that the uptick in where Tank Dell has been drafted, same thing with Stephon Diggs. They are both third-round picks. They are back-to-back picks. If you go into an Underdog draft lobby right now and you start drafting, you will see when you get into the third round, Diggs and Tank are right next to each other. You have to choose between the two of them. However, Diggs is projected for 150 more yards and 2 more touchdowns. I don't know what Vegas knows, but they clearly think they know something. The most obvious thing they know is that Nico is the alpha in that room, and he should be drafted accordingly. He is a must-draft player in our draft guide, which is live right now on bdge.co. Okay, so it's got the list of must draft players. It's got all of our rankings. It's got everything you need for your fantasy football draft this year. And the great part about Underdog Fantasy is that if you download Underdog Fantasy and you use our code BDGE, not only are you getting all the shit I said before, and you can put money on the lines that I'm going to show you at the end of this video, but you get a draft guide emailed to you absolutely free as long as you deposit $10 or more on Underdog. Mwah. Let's move to the Seattle receiving group. All right. DK Metcalf is by far and away the alpha there. He's like above 1,000 yards. But Jackson Smith-Njigba and Tyler Lockett both have their lines set at 775 and 4.5 touchdowns. Okay. So while everybody expects Jackson Smith-Njigba to be the breakout and Tyler Lockett to fall off, they are projected per Vegas to produce around the exact same level. However, JSN is getting drafted 3 to 4 rounds earlier in fantasy drafts, okay? Maybe we need to fix that a little bit. The Packers room is another one that I looked at, and this is, there was nothing really telling here. Jayden Reed's line is at 775, 4.5 touchdowns. Christian Watson's is at 750, 5.5 touchdowns. Romeo Doubs is at 600, 4.5 touchdowns. We don't have any lines up for Dontavian Wicks, but I do think what this is really saying is they have no idea who the alpha is. They don't have a projection for who the alpha is. I think realistically, all of these guys are just good receivers, and they are going to continue to rotate that offense all the time. It's just a smart football move. When you have 4 really high quality, and they just won't stop talking about Bo Melton. I don't think he's really any good, but if they want to keep mixing him in, you have 5 quality wide receivers that if you just rotate and rotate and rotate and rotate, they're never going to get tired, and they're going to be able to play at a very high level throughout the 60 minutes of a football game. So this is kind of what Vegas is telling us as well. The last one I wanted to look at in terms of receiver rooms was the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, Travis Kelce is number 1, still up there at 950. Hollywood and Worthy are both at 750 yards with, I think, 4.5 touchdowns. I forgot to write the touchdown number down, but they see them as a split, which is kind of interesting because when I originally started doing research for this video, Worthy was up at 800 and has since moved down to 750. I think that's still far too high. There is no line for Rashee Rice. Obviously, Vegas doesn't really put up lines for situations that are really murky, which is, I'm actually surprised that they put up quarterback lines, the rookie quarterback lines, without having a real timetable for when these guys are going to start. But again, that's really, really useful for when we're projecting things. And lastly, how could we do this video without talking about running backs? So my biggest takeaway here was there was 4 running backs on this list that were set at 4.5 rushing touchdowns. Tells you Vegas does not expect these guys to get into the end zone at a high level or a high number of times, at least on the ground. Those 4 players are Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Brooks, Devin Singletary, and Zamir White. Now, I'm not worried about Kamara. No one thinks that, his goal line work is the reason that you would draft him in fantasy. He gets a ton of checkdowns. Jonathan Brooks, I think they've actually taken this line down now that report came out like yesterday or 2 days ago about Brooks probably not playing until week 3 or 4. I've been trying to tell you not to draft him in Underdog literally all summer because of the injury. There's no reason to rush him back. But if they put that line back up, we are taking the lower quicker than fucking how quick that dab was. I'm still doing dabs 10 years later. I don't give a fuck. Devin Singletary, 4.5 rushing touchdowns. Zamir White, all right? So Zamir White might be my biggest takeaway here. This is a really low touchdown total, and this is a guy that won't be a pass catcher. He's not a pass catcher. Dylan Laub is going to be the pass catcher there, or someone else is going to be the third down back, the 2 and 4 minute drill back. In an offense that's not going to score a lot of touchdowns. So you have Zamir White, who, yeah, sure, he might get like 17, 18 carries a game, but if he's not scoring touchdowns and he's not catching passes, and this is not a team that's able to like milk the clock with a run game, he's not going to return value for you, okay? So where I'm not worried about a guy like Kamara because he's going to be so involved in the passing game, I am worried about a guy like Zamir White. Devin Singletary. Do you want running backs on teams like the Giants? Probably not. Is he going to be a 3-down workhorse? I think they signed him to be, but like how often does that play itself out when you have a guy of mid-level talent? I also think Tyrone Tracy, their rookie, who played 4 years of wide receiver in college and was a converted running back, broke out at Purdue. I think he has a really legitimate claim to being a 3rd-down pass-catching back in the Giants offense. Now, if you have Devin Singletary as a 2-down thumper in an offense that's going to score fucking 14 points a game, don't really want him either, all right? Those were the numbers and the things that really stood out to me and the takeaways that we had from them. I want y'all to do me a favor. When you're on the Underdog app, like go look at these lines, go look at the higher lowers. Give me some takeaways that you had from looking at them down below in the comment section, all right? Because sometimes I miss these things. Not everything is just a pure puzzle with directions here. You have to, there's an art, there's a science, there is some math involved in this, but you guys will see things that I don't see. So when you're on the Underdog app, of course, again, use code BDGE when you deposit for the first time. Let me know some of the biggest takeaways that you had that maybe grounded you a little bit and let you know that maybe you were too high or too low on specific players. And as promised, now that we've done our takeaways, I'll hit you with 4 or 5 of my season-long props that I have ripped. Okay, so this is one of the first slips that I put on early August 1st, as you can see. We've got Quentin Johnston lower than 599 receiving yards. We've got Zach Moss lower than 850 receiving yards. We've got Big Pat out there in Pittsburgh higher than 475 receiving yards. I will talk you through it. Also, all of my slips will be on Pickett. All right, so if you don't have the Pickett app, you can follow me on there and it'll show you every bet I make this entire season. It'll show you all of the Underdog slips that I make throughout the preseason. So if you want to tail, Pickett is the best place to do that, okay? So we will link Pickett down below. It's an app that you can download, iOS, whatever. It's free to get on there. And if you use our code BDGE when you first get on there, they're actually giving you $3. I don't really know why they run that promo, but they're actually paying you to get on the app. And then you get to follow our bets also. Everyone in the office uses Pickett. So if you ever wondered what I'm taking throughout the week or throughout the summer, Pickett is the app to do so. But Quentin Johnston, in my eyes, he is pretty much a certifiable bust. And I don't like to just say that outwardly after one rookie season. But guys, when you look at the objective situation right now, Quentin Johnston, objectively was horrible last year, but that's fine. You could have bad rookie seasons and bounce back. However, they got rid of all of their pass catchers, and he's still not running as a starter right now. It is Josh Palmer, DJ Chark, and Ladd McConkey starting in 3 wide receiver sets. I have very little faith in Quentin Johnston having any sort of bounce back here. He was an awful route runner last year. He was dropping balls left and right. He didn't want them. He threw them to the ground before he put them in his hands. So right now you have a backup quarterback on an extremely run-heavy offense with a quarterback that's already dealing with a plantar fasciitis injury. This is an easy lower for me. Zach Moss, here's usually how I play these season-long slips. I think the easiest way to make money is by taking lowers. You will hit lowers like 65, 70% of the time. Everyone's always excited about every player in preseason. The reality of the situation is a lot of these players miss games, get injured, and their lowers hit because of that. A lot of these players, there are so many things that can go wrong in a season. A player just doesn't play well. He's inefficient. He gets injured. He gets benched. He gets moved down the depth chart. The team is bad. And most of the time, almost every player, if their quarterback gets hurt, then their entire offensive output or ceiling also gets hurt. So if Joe Burrow were to go down, then Zach Moss's ceiling is significantly lower. So there are so many things that can go wrong, but in order to hit the higher on all these, most things just have to go right. So if you play the odds, the lower is much smarter of a bet to take. So Zach Moss, he's going to split time with Chase Brown. This is a full committee back there in Cincinnati. And I am not about to base Zach Moss's entire season off of a 4-game span of last year when we have a 3-year sample size prior to that of Zach Moss being an extremely mid-range running back that got hurt pretty often. So Zach Moss, yeah, I'm for sure on the lower. If he scores 6 or 7 touchdowns and ends up being a decent fantasy option, wouldn't surprise me, but I'm not betting the higher on Zach Moss because of all the moving parts there in Cincy. Big Pat, love them this year with Arthur Smith coming over. They feature tight ends in the offense. They have a good offensive line. They won't ask him to block. He will be the second most targeted player in this offense behind George Pickens. Without Deontay Johnson, they need playmakers, and I think Pat's an easy bounce-back candidate. Last year he got hurt. The year before that, he had 750 receiving yards. So I think this offense running through him and Pickens, I think he goes over this easily. So I put 200 down on that one to win 880 again on Underdog Fantasy. If you're not already on there, you could take these. They are up for you. They are ripe. They are prime for the taking. And make sure you use our code BDGE on both Pickett and Underdog. BDGE on Underdog will get you a deposit match plus a free square for week 1. Move on to slip number 2. I've made probably 15 slips this offseason. So again, if you want to see all of them, Pickett is the place to go see that. Link down below, code BDGE. Xavier Worthy, I'm just not on Xavier Worthy. He's just not him to me. To put him at 800 receiving yards when he's competing with Rashee Rice, when he's competing with Hollywood Brown, when he's competing with Travis Kelce, when he is a rookie, when he's competing with Isaiah Pacheco just in terms of overall touches, I have no doubt he's going to have some big games. That is the type of playmaker he is, but I'm just 800 yards for a rookie is just way too high. So we're playing the odds there. Use Zach Moss again in this slip, or to explain that. Christian McCaffrey, over-under of 5.5 receiving touchdowns. Would it shock me if he hit this? Absolutely not. Last year he had 7, but that was the first time he went over 5 since 2018 when he was getting 140 targets in Carolina's offense, all right? His receiving touchdown total since then were 4, 1, 1, 5, and 5 in his rookie year as well. Obviously, some of those were injured years, but like betting the over is also betting on him to stay healthy. He's already dealing with a calf injury. So like I like the lower a lot on receiving touchdowns. He'll probably end up with 5 at the end of the year. Jerry Jeudy, just another cone who can never put a full season together. He goes to Cleveland, where do we trust Deshaun Watson? No. Is he the one there? No. Amari Cooper is. Is he sharing snaps with Cedric Tillman and Elijah Moore and David Njoku? And the number doesn't matter to me. It's just always going to be a Jerry Jeudy lower. All right. So fade Jerry Jeudy into the fucking core of the earth, please, if you want to win money this year. And that is all I got for you in today's video. It was a little bit of a different style. Let me know if you like these types of videos where they're coming from a different angle and hopefully opening your eyes to another resource that just make you a better fantasy player, make you a better. All right. So if I leave you with anything, it is to obviously untuck your shirt now. Business is over. Business has been handled. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Make sure you use promo code BDGE on both Underdog and Pickett. Follow us along on Pickett. Bet on Underdog. We can do best ball drafts together, all that stuff. I love you, and I'm out of here.